A woman is chained on all fours in the center of the Hippodrome of Constantinople. Iron shackles bind her wrists and ankles. She is naked except for torn rags. Her back is marked with fresh lash wounds. 50,000 people fill the stone seats, rising up on all sides. They are screaming, laughing, placing bets. Behind her, she can hear something approaching. Heavy footsteps, snorting breath. The crowd's noise changes, gets louder, more excited. She turns her head enough to see guards leading a massive bull through the arena gates. The animal is enormous. Over 1,000 pounds of muscle and horn. It is being driven directly toward her. This is not an execution. This is what the Byzantines called entertainment. And if you watch until the end, you will discover exactly what happened when that bull reached her. Her name is Helena. She is 23 years old, a member of a noble family aligned with the blue faction. Right now, she can feel the hot sand of the arena floor burning her knees and palms. Constantinople is in summer. The sun is merciless. She has been kneeling here for 2 hours already. The iron shackles have cut into her wrists. Blood runs down her forearms and drips into the sand. The crowd noise is overwhelming, a roar that never stops. 50,000 voices merged into something inhuman. She can smell herself. Sweat and fear and blood. She can smell the arena. Ancient sand that has soaked up blood for 3 centuries. Old death mixed with fresh. She can hear the bull getting closer. The sound of its hooves on stone. The guards shouting commands. The crack of whips driving it forward. Her breathing is coming fast and shallow. Panic is setting in. She wants to run, but the chains hold her in place. She is positioned exactly where they want her, facing away from the approaching animal. Unable to see it, only hear it getting closer and closer. The crowd is chanting now, rhythmic, coordinated. She cannot make out the words over the roar, but she knows they are not cheering for her survival. They paid to see something happen. Something that will be talked about for years. Something that will make other women think twice before opposing the Green faction. Helena does not yet know that 3 other women have already died in this arena this week. She does not know that what is about to happen to her has been carefully planned by men who understand exactly how to destroy a person without killing them. She does not know that she will survive this day, but wish for the rest of her short life that she had not. What she does know is that the bull is almost behind her now. She can feel its breath. Hot and wet on her back, she starts screaming. Here is what they never taught you about the Byzantine Empire. You know about the beautiful mosaics and the soaring domes of Hagia Sophia. You learned about Constantine and Justinian and the preservation of Roman law. But you never learned that the Hippodrome of Constantinople was a slaughterhouse, where political enemies were destroyed in front of cheering crowds for over 1,000 years. You never heard about the systematic use of public humiliation and torture as instruments of state control. And you definitely never discovered the specific methods Byzantines used to break women who threatened the political order. Tonight you will learn why the Hippodrome was not just an arena for chariot races, but a theater of calculated cruelty. How the faction system turned citizens into participants in atrocities, and why the single most brutal spectacles in Byzantine history targeted women specifically. The reason this history has been sanitized will show you exactly how empires hide their darkest practices behind claims of civilization and Christianity. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to know the hidden truths history tried to bury. Stay with us, because what I reveal at the end about Helena and the bull will shock you. Comment where you are watching from. Now, let us continue, because this gets much darker. The Hippodrome of Constantinople was not like Roman arenas. It was something more sinister. Built in the 3rd century and expanded by Constantine in 330 AD, it became the political and social center of the Byzantine Empire. The structure was massive, over 400 meters long, 100 meters wide, rising stone seats that could hold 100,000 spectators, though 50,000 was more typical. At one end stood the Kathisma, the imperial box where emperors sat to watch. The arena floor was fine sand imported from Egypt, expensive, specially chosen. Around the outer walls ran corridors and chambers, storage for equipment, holding cells for prisoners. And beneath everything, a network of tunnels and rooms that most citizens never saw. This was not just entertainment architecture, it was infrastructure for state terror. You need to understand the faction system to understand what happened in that arena. Byzantine society was divided between two groups, the Blues and the Greens. Originally, these were chariot racing teams, sports fandom. But by the 5th and 6th centuries, they had evolved into something far more dangerous: political parties, religious movements, street gangs, military forces, social identities. If you were born into a blue family, you were blue for life. Same with green. The factions controlled neighborhoods, ran protection rackets, maintained private armies. They had their own uniforms, their own meeting halls, their own underground prisons. When faction violence erupted, the streets of Constantinople became war zones. Hundreds could die in a single night of rioting. And the Hippodrome was where faction loyalty was most visible, most important, most dangerous. When you attended races, you sat in your faction's section, wore your faction's colors, cheered only for your faction's chariots. Any perceived disloyalty could get you killed, not by authorities, by your own faction members who saw you as a traitor. This system gave emperors a tool. They could manipulate faction rivalries to control the population, promise favor to one faction to keep them loyal, threaten the other faction to keep them compliant, use both factions against each other to prevent them from uniting against imperial authority. And when political enemies needed to be destroyed publicly, the Hippodrome provided the perfect venue. Tens of thousands of witnesses, faction members eager to participate, an arena literally designed for spectacular violence. Let me be clear about something. This was not ancient history to the Byzantines. This was not barbarism they had evolved beyond. This was deliberate policy in a Christian empire that claimed moral superiority over pagan Rome. So Helena was trapped, born into a blue family, engaged to marry a blue official. Her family had wealth and status within their faction. But in 532 AD, tensions between blues and greens had reached a breaking point. The Emperor Justinian had angered both factions through heavy taxation and religious persecution. For once, blues and greens united against him. The result was the Nika riots. And what happened in the Hippodrome during those riots was the single largest stadium massacre in human history. January 18th, 532 AD. The Hippodrome is packed. Chariot races are scheduled, but no one is watching the track. Both blues and greens are chanting the same word, Nika. Victory. Not for their chariots, against the emperor. They are demanding Justinian abdicate, demanding he remove corrupt officials, demanding tax relief. The emperor is in the Kathisma. He can hear them, 50,000 people calling for his removal. This has never happened before. Blues and greens united, chanting together. This is not a riot yet. This is a political demonstration, a show of unified opposition. Justinian sends officials to negotiate. They enter the arena. The crowd shouts them down, refuses to disperse. The officials retreat. Report to the emperor that the situation is deteriorating. Justinian makes a decision, one that will define his reign, one that will result in more deaths in a single day than most ancient battles. He orders the imperial guards to seal the gates. All of them. Every exit from the Hippodrome. 50,000 people are now trapped inside. They realize what is happening. The chanting stops. Confusion spreads, then fear, then panic. People rush toward the gates, find them locked, barred from outside. They are trapped in the arena with an emperor who has decided to solve his political problem in the most direct way possible. You are probably wondering what happened next. Let me tell you. Justinian had called in his best general, Belisarius. a military genius who had conquered Vandal Africa and would later reconquer Italy. Belisarius entered the hippodrome through the imperial passage with 3,000 soldiers, heavy infantry, armed with swords and spears. No bows, no ranged weapons. This was going to be up close. Personal, methodical, the soldiers formed a line across the arena floor, began advancing on the crowd. The people in the stands had nowhere to go, no weapons, no armor, no training. Most were civilians, merchants, craftsmen, laborers, families who had come to watch races. They tried to climb the walls, tried to break through the sealed gates. Some jumped from the upper tiers, 30 feet down onto stone, breaking bones, dying on impact. The soldiers reached the stands and began the killing. Systematic, efficient, moving row by row through the sections, stabbing anyone they could reach, men, women, children, the elderly. No discrimination, no mercy. This went on for hours. The screaming could be heard across the city. People trapped in upper sections watched the soldiers work their way up toward them, knowing their turn was coming. Unable to escape, some fought back with bare hands, were cut down immediately. Some begged for mercy, were killed anyway. Some simply stood there, frozen in shock as soldiers approached, were stabbed where they stood. The sand turned red, then muddy with blood. Bodies piled up in the aisles between sections. The soldiers had to climb over corpses to reach people trying to hide behind them. By nightfall, 30,000 people were dead. 30,000. In a single building, in a single day. The largest stadium massacre in ancient history. Justinian had solved his political problem. No more unified opposition. No more blue and green alliance. The survivors would remember what happened when you challenged imperial authority. Would remember that the emperor could and would kill tens of thousands of his own people in their own social space to maintain power. If you are feeling sick right now, that is appropriate. This actually happened. We know because multiple Byzantine historians recorded it. Procopius, Marcellinus, John Malalas. The numbers vary slightly. Some say 25,000, some say 35,000, but all agree it was tens of thousands killed in the hippodrome during Nika. But the massacre was not the only thing that happened that day. While soldiers killed the crowd, Justinian's officials went through the stands, identifying specific individuals, political enemies, faction leaders, wealthy families who had supported the opposition. These people were not killed. They were pulled from the crowd, dragged down to the arena floor, held for special treatment. And among them were women, wives and daughters of blue and green officials who had called for Justinian's removal. These women had committed no crime except being related to the wrong people. What happened to them in the days after the massacre shows how the Byzantines used gender-specific humiliation as political terror. Remember this detail. It becomes crucial when we return to Helena and what happened with that bull. 73 women were arrested after the Nika riots, all from noble families, all affiliated with opposition factions. Most had done nothing except attend races with their families. But the empire needed to send a message. Not just about political opposition, but about social hierarchy, about proper behavior for women of rank, about the consequences of being on the wrong side. These women were held in the chambers beneath the hippodrome for 3 days, denied food, denied water, denied basic dignity. Then on the 4th day, they were brought up into the arena, one at a time. The hippodrome was open again. Smaller crowd this time, maybe 10,000, carefully selected, loyal citizens, people who needed to see the consequences of disloyalty. The women were marched through the arena gates. The crowd noise changed, got louder, more excited. These women had worn silk and gold 4 days ago. Now they wore rags, or less. Their hair had been cut off, not styled, hacked off with knives, irregular, humiliating. Some had been beaten, visible bruises and cuts. They were paraded around the arena track, walking in a line, guards on either side. The crowd was encouraged to shout, to insult, to throw things, rotten food, stones, filth. The women had to walk the entire circuit, 400 meters, in front of thousands of people, being pelted and mocked. Some collapsed, were dragged to their feet, forced to continue. Some cried. Some maintained dignity through silence. All were broken by the end. After the walk, they were brought to the center of the arena, made to kneel. A herald read their crimes, supporting treason, harboring rebels, defying imperial authority. Crimes they had not actually committed, crimes of association, of family, of faction, loyalty. Then their punishment was announced: exile, confiscation of property, permanent social disgrace. They were led away, sent to distant corners of the empire. The message was clear: women who failed to control their men, who failed to stay out of politics, who failed to remain properly submissive, would be stripped of everything: rank, wealth, dignity, identity, in front of as many witnesses as possible. This same pattern appears throughout Byzantine history whenever women are perceived as threats to order. But the Nika riots established something else. They established that the Hippodrome was no longer just an entertainment venue. It was an execution ground, a place where enemies of the state could be destroyed publicly. And Byzantines developed specific methods for maximum psychological impact. One of these was blinding. Byzantines perfected blinding as political punishment. It was surgical, precise, designed to remove someone from power without killing them. If you blinded a rival, they could not claim the throne, could not lead armies, could not threaten you, but they remained alive, as a warning, as a reminder, as a visible symbol of what happened to those who reached too high. And many blindings happened in the Hippodrome, in front of crowds, as public spectacle. Let me tell you about one specific case: the blinding of Emperor Romanos IV in 1071. Romanos had lost a battle to the Turks, was captured, ransomed back to Constantinople. His political enemies saw an opportunity. They deposed him, declared a new emperor. But Romanos still had supporters, still had legitimacy. So they brought him to the Hippodrome, announced his crimes: treason, incompetence, endangering the empire. Then the executioner approached with a bronze rod, heated until it glowed red. The crowd fell silent. This part required attention. Romanos was held down by 4 guards, his head locked in position. The executioner placed the glowing bronze against his eyes. First the right, held it there for 3 seconds. The eyeball ruptured. Fluid hissed and steamed. The smell of burning flesh spread through the arena. Then the left eye. Same process. Romanos screamed throughout. The crowd watched, some in horror, some in fascination, most in silence. Understanding that this could be them, if they chose the wrong faction, backed the wrong emperor, made the wrong political choice. When it was done, Romanos was led away, blind, broken. He lived another 2 years in a monastery, died of infection from the wounds. But those 2 years he served his purpose. Every time someone saw the blind former emperor, they remembered. They remembered what happens when you lose, when you fall from power, when you threaten those above you. And here is what makes this even worse. The blinding was not done by a professional executioner. It was done by a common soldier, a man with no medical training, no expertise, no precision. The goal was not clean removal of sight. The goal was maximizing pain, maximizing visible damage, maximizing the horror for the audience. Sometimes the heated metal was applied multiple times. Sometimes different implements were used. Hooks to remove the eyeballs completely, knives to cut them out. Acid poured directly into the sockets. Byzantine chronicles describe dozens of variations, each one more brutal, each one performed in public, each one designed to remind citizens that the empire owned their bodies, could modify them, mutilate them, destroy them at will. And if you were important enough, your destruction would happen in front of thousands, would become a story told for generations, would become a warning carved into collective memory through the medium of your ruined body. But blindings were quick, over in minutes. The Byzantines developed other methods that lasted longer. That gave crowds more to watch, more to